today, what I want to discuss with you is guilt, Jewish guilt. Everybody knows what it is. Usually when you think of it, you think of your mother, mother's guilt. Or you think about the guilt you've given your kids. So what is it? Let's explore it. I think if you and I would have a conversation and the 14 of us were sitting around the table, I'm sure we would be hearing lots of different ideas of what Jewish guilt is and what it isn't. But for argument's sake, let's try to define it. Jewish guilt is that voice inside of you that tells you you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You should have done better on your test. You should show up to shul more often. Your house should be more kosher. You should wear a shaitel. No, I don't think anybody has that guilt. I know. I should be, Rabbi, like I think about it, I really should be learning more Torah. Honestly, I feel guilty about it. I really do. But my life is hectic and it's busy and I have a lot going on. So no. No. But I feel guilty about it. Just know, just between me and you, Rabbi, like, I want you to know, I feel guilty. I've heard so many guilt confessions over the years that I've already developed an answer for it. You know what my answer is? When people walk over to me and start confessing, I say, I'm not a priest and it's not Sunday. Like, honestly, I couldn't care less. Like, people will often, it's like the Rosh Hashanah ritual. It's this time of the year that I think about it every year. I stand, at least customarily, until 2020 Corona madness. I used to stand outside and greet everybody, shake every hand or bow to every person, acknowledge as many people as possible. And you always have at least 20 people who show up. You haven't seen them in a year. You don't even remember if you ever saw them. And they walk over to you and they say, hey, Rabbi, I'm Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, like I'm a founding member of this community. Mm-hmm. It's lovely. And I really should be coming more often. I really should, but just things are so hectic at home. Just like, Rabbi, like things are just so busy, but please go. And I'm looking at them like, what about me exactly made you feel that now is the time to start confessing how often you come to shul? Was it like, did I ooze guilt out of me? Was it something that you just saw and you're like, oh my gosh, now I have to start spilling my guts? Do I look like a therapist? What exactly about my energy made you feel that right now I want to hear about how much you feel bad or you claim to feel bad about not showing up to shul? So if it's somebody I know, I say today's not Sunday and I'm not a priest. But if it's somebody that I don't know and I'm scared to offend them, I'll just acknowledge and say, no worries, no judgment. God bless you. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. But it's when I see somebody who symbolizes Judaism, and that means a rabbi, for some reason rabbis symbolize Judaism, let's say they do, or they should. It's time to spill my guts and just tell you how miserable I feel that I'm not living up to, Rabbi, when I was younger, I used to bring my kid every Friday night to shul. And I don't know, ever since, I just don't anymore, but I really want to. What? Who's judging you? And first of all, even if I am judging you, why do you care? In other words, imagine walking around to every single person who judges you and start giving them a clarification. The people who judge your parenting, you walk over to them in the restaurant, they're sitting at the other table watching as your kids are screaming like a bunch of lunatics, and you walk over to them and you just give them a whole clarification about what's really going on. And then you clarify to your grandmother and to your mother-in-law and to your this, and at some stage you just start apologizing for yourself and you say, okay, this is who I am. And yet when it comes to religion, mature, sophisticated adults feel like they have to feel guilty because it's part of the tradition. But here's the question. How many people's lives have ever changed thanks to guilt? How many people have walked over, I'm feeling so guilty about not coming to shul. I think I'll start coming more often. Or I feel so guilty of not sending my kid to a Jewish school. I think I'm going to send him to Jewish school. Or I feel so guilty that my kid is turning Barmi or Bati and doesn't have a clue about, their heritage. I feel really guilty, and I'm actually going to hire a teacher and pay the money and the effort to get them to know. Give me a break. Rarely, if ever. Why? It almost feels good to feel guilty. That's how good it feels. It feels so miserable to feel. I mean, and that's the ultimate Jewish thing. Like, it's painfully delicious. It's mamish geschmack. You're eating the pacha or the herring, and you know that it's killing every single part inside of you, but you're enjoying it. It's the same thing. Guilt feels terrible and feels amazing. And what do you mean? You know what kind of Jew I am? I even feel guilty. I'm like a real Jew. So, hey, I mean, seriously, what else do you want from me? God, I've shown up and I'm feeling guilty. And the biggest proof that everybody loves guilt is, what's the 2 days of the year that everybody shows up to shul? Sorry for being cynical. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. And you've heard this from me before, but I'll repeat it. If people chose 2 days a year based on experiences, you'd imagine that the 2 days of the year would be, I don't know, Purim and Simchas Torah. Lots of fun. Or maybe 2 shiurim during the year, or Hanukkah, like the menorah. Nah, you don't choose the easy holidays. What do you show up to? The miserable, verquetscht, verlanget. It doesn't finish. The chazan kvitchit, the chazan singing and loving the sound of his own voice. The rabbi so excited he never spoke to a crowd this big in a full year. He cannot stop listening to himself. Why? Why do people show up on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? So if we're talking spiritually speaking, from a Kabbalistic perspective, it's because your neshama is alive. Your neshama is alive, and that's what brings you to shul. These are soul days. Fine. But let's leave mysticism aside for a second and just talk straight talk. Okay? Person to person. Why are so many people coming to shul? Because this is the day that Jewish guilt is obligated. And if I show up and I feel really guilty, and I show up to God and I say, hey, dude, lady, I don't know what you are, 25 hours a year, I'm going to fast. I'll wear leather slipper. I'll wear non-leather, okay, or maybe I will, whatever I want, but I'll fast, you know what? And I'll go and I'll say some mumbo jumbo in the shul and, sing some familiar tunes. And God, I've shown I care. Okay, now sign me up. It's like showing up to visit your mother once a year. Okay? Not because you actually like your mother, you actually don't, and that's the topic we'll talk about tomorrow night, dysfunctional families. You don't. But you're scared to be written out of the inheritance. So you show up every once in a while and you're just like, hi. Mom, I love you so much. It's fantastic. It's good to see you. Or dad, grumpy dad, it's good to see you too. Now, I'm not saying everybody's like this, but there are. Proof there are is how many families start fighting the moment the inheritance is in. So pretty much you have to start wondering what was going on before the inheritance showed up. A lot of manipulation. And so too, like with God, I don't actually want a relationship with you, God. I really don't. I'll be honest, it doesn't even make sense to me. Relationship with you? Who are you? Where are you? But you know what? Just in case you exist, God, just in case, I'll show up 25 hours. I'll do whatever you tell me. I'll sit on a miserable bench. Or if I'm lucky, I'll go to a shul with a comfortable chair. I'll listen to a nasal chazan and a overly sweet choir and a rabbi preaching and guilt, driving us and telling us we don't come enough. And God, I'll tolerate all this for 1 day a year. Just please, other days, just leave me alone. Just get out of my life. But I'll feel guilty for a day. I promise you, I'll be there no matter what. So what are we showing up to God for? Because we're scared? You've heard the story before. I've shared it so many times, but gosh, it's this time of the year I have to share it. Forgive me. The rabbi, just before he dies, he tells his son, Yankele, I need a favor. I want you to go get me a cross. Dad, you lost your marbles. You're a Jew. You're a rabbi. A cross. Yankele, cross. Dad, where do I get a cross? What am I supposed to start walking over to all the Yiddish neighbors who has a Salem in the house? What am I supposed to do? Yankele, a cross. Fine. Yankele doesn't want to dishonor his father's last wish. Goes out on the street, sees a nice, tall black man with a big golden cross around the neck, walks over to the fella and says, "Sir, do you mind if I borrow the cross for a few minutes?" The guy gives him a look and says, "No, like seriously, my dad's right in this room. He's about to die. He just wants a cross." This guy says, "Okay, dude, pleasure." Anyways, this guy takes the cross, brings it into the room, hands it to his dad. Big golden cross. The dad looks at it, sits up, and gives it a kiss. And the son faints. The whole room was like, "Ah, what? The rabbi of the shul? Long white beard, big yarmulke on his head, never spoke lashon hara in his life. What?" So finally the son wakes up and his father's like half dead already, and he turns to his dad and he says, "Dad, have you lost your marbles? You're a Jew." And his dad looks at him and says, "Uncle, just in case, just in case." I've always loved that story because it's like, yeah, I don't know if God exists, if God doesn't exist, if Yom Kippur is real or not real, but you know what, God, 25 hours a year, I'll show up just in case. Just in case whatever they've been preaching to me from being a baby, that there's a God who cares about what we do and our deeds matter. You know what? Once a year, I'll just show up. I'll give the God a kiss, not the cross. I'll give the God a kiss and say, "You know what? In case you exist, this is for you. See you next year." I'll go and party for the next 364 days. Because honestly, I'm not actually sure what you want or if you want or who are you anyway? So if you haven't figured out in the last 12 minutes, I'm not exactly a huge fan of Jewish guilt. I get it. I'm not saying, like if somebody does something wrong, they should feel guilty and repent. You hurt somebody's feelings. You should go and apologize and walk over to a person and say the same. "I'm so sorry for hurting your feelings. I really am. I was insensitive." And once you've done that and the person forgives you, then the guilt is gone. But sitting with this perpetual guilt, sorry. No, don't buy it. Not at all. Because it doesn't change anybody. It's almost like this comfortable feeling. It's like masochism. You're just enjoying the pain. And almost the fact that I care, that I don't care, it shows that I really care. Real Gemara cup. This is not the time of the year for guilt. We're not sitting on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, being told, "Feel guilty. God is out to get you. Show up and confess your sins. And the harder you clap your chest, the more forgiveness you will get." And let us all say amen. It doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. It's God showing up once a year and saying, "Just show up. Can we just have a relationship? Can you actually spend the month of Elul trying to get to know me so that when you come to Rosh Hashanah, you actually feel that something's real. There's something authentic. You could show up with a bit of authenticity and show up and have a real relationship. Can you please just show up? Let's get to know one another." Yes, I'll get to know you by you getting to know yourself. That's ultimately the way God gets to know us. I'll get to know you the more you get to know yourself. God knows us. But until we know ourselves, that knowledge is irrelevant, right? Go explore yourself. Go explore your faith. Go explore your character. Go explore your personality. Go explore. Get to know yourself. And show up. Just show up for Rosh Hashanah. Show up with your heart, with your mind. Just show up your entire self. I want to get to know you, not because I'm going to punish you, not because I'm the one that's about to sit there signing with a pen on a paper, "You are dying and going to hell." Not because of that. I want to get to know you. Just show up. Just before I got on here, I was writing an article. And the article was really about being authentic in relationships. And you know the difference between a non-authentic relationship and an authentic relationship? A non-authentic relationship is where the steward or stewardess on the plane, and I'm sure you have no idea what I'm talking about, who's been on a plane in the last few months, but they look at you and they say, "Hey, Coke or Sprite? And you're like, I'll take the Coke. Water, please. That's a non-authentic relationship. She's doing or he's doing their role, and you're, playing your card equally and just being civil and sweet, but sometimes a bit too sugary sweet. And then there's authentic relationship where you just show up the way you are, as in marriage, your children. Real relationships are authentic. I'm not saying they have to be too authentic, because sometimes like a little civility in a home is also nice. It doesn't have to be everybody screaming at each other every time they have a bad mood. But there's no question that the closer a relationship is, the more authentic it is. And that's where you're safe. You're safe in that authenticity. Are you showing up to God feeling authentic, or are you showing up like a stewardess? Hi, God. What would you like? Rosh Hashanah? Yom Kippur? Okay, good. Anything else? No, but I really don't want to. No, I really hope you don't say anything else. I was just planning on pushing my trolley through and just, making it to the other side. So just forgive me. it's what kind of relationship do I actually want? And forget about God for a moment. Let's leave the God for a moment. What kind of relationship do we want with ourselves? Like, what happens when we actually are forced to sit with ourselves and get to know ourselves? Is it like, hey, what's up? Let's get to know one another. Been a long time, eh? Let's have a coffee together. Let's say l'chaim. Let's do it. Or it's like, hey, this is awkward. We haven't seen each other in a few years, and I'm not actually, like you start apologizing why you haven't seen your friend for the last 2 years. I really wanted to reach out to you, previously, and we just, life is just so hectic. It's just, there's so much going on. Yeah. Okay, let's get the awkwardness over and let's go our separate ways. You understand the difference between an authentic relationship and an awkward relationship? An authentic relationship, you fit in. When you're forced to reflect about your life, it's a comfortable space. Yes, there's certain things that you have to regret and get over, but you're authentic within yourself. You know yourself. You spend time with yourself, and you're like, okay, I'm looking at this past year. I've done X, I've done Y. The world has gone a bit, upside down, et cetera, et cetera. But, all in all, I have my, ducks in a row, or a few of them out of the row. This is where I want to focus on next year to get my ducks in that row, and mazel tov. But if it's not authentic, and I have no idea who I am, and I have no idea who God is, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing, it's like this, like walking into Shul on Yom Kippur with like your chumash is upside down. Metaphorically, everybody knows how to read English, but you're like, okay, what do I have to do to just survive the next 2 hours? It's painful. I always tell people, don't have to read the whole machzor. You don't have to read any of the machzor if you're not up to it. But just connect. Show up with your heart. Show up with authenticity. Don't just beer it. Oh, shame, man. Clock. They said that davening would be finished at 1. It's already 12:56, and I don't see it finishing. One of the things I do in Rosh Hashanah, this year it's going to be very different because services are so short, etc. But one of my jobs, and whoever's been to Shul knows this, so I'm like, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are at 12:15 right now. That is 42 minutes left. We are on page 426. If you follow, we're going to be speeding very quickly to page 490. And then at page 502, we're going to say the Tehillim, and we will be done. Ladies and gentlemen, the chip and dip is waiting for you in 45 minutes. Please, I beg your patience. Why am I doing that? Because everybody there is never sitting on shpilkas. It's like when you went on dating and like it was a painful date and like you realized in 1 second the guy is like not for you, and I don't know, you just had no choice but to just bear it, and you're like, I know this is over. I've known it's over since he picked me up, and I really, really want to go home. That's a non-authentic relationship. That's when you're showing up with God and you're like, okay, God, how much do I have to bear this whole thing? And Nebuch this year, the choir is not going to sing because they can't even daven for you. So like you're kind of locked up in your own space. I mean, that's like really tough. There's no one to even entertain you on the date. You're not watching a movie. You're actually forced to talk to each other. It's like awkward. But God wants his heart. If you heard the story I sent out on Saturday night, once a Shabbos, it was a story about the child who shows up to shul and screams like a rooster. Kukurika! Well, it's called the Kukuriku story in Hasidic lingo, the Kukuriku story. What is it? That this kid shows up and doesn't know how to read and doesn't show up with anything other than their authenticity, and they manage to change the decree for the whole community for that year. Why? Because Rahmana Libabai, the merciful one in heaven, asks for heart. They ask for authenticity, not guilt. Just show up. Stop giving the whole story why you didn't, why you did, da 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 da. Just show up. I remember one time I showed up after a long break. I was in South Africa. It was almost 2 years. I showed up at home. And yes, I should have been given the guilt trip. Where were you? Why didn't you come, etc. But I'm home. And it's right away. My mother greets me. My father greets me. I'm home. Yes, later on I have to, ask forgiveness, etc. But ultimately, fundamentally, you're home. You showed up. When you're showing up and it's just awkward, it says something about the relationship. And again, I'm not saying somebody has to become ultra religious to have a comfortable relationship. I think there's many religious people who are ultra firm and have a very awkward relationship. They're just doing a lot more because they're scared, just in case. Or that's maybe the way they grew up. It's not about how firm you are or not firm you are. It's how authentic the relationship is. You could be doing the bare minimum, just like very little. But what you're doing is with your heart. You're showing up with your heart. And in that space, you're having a comfortable relationship with your faith, your religion, with your God. That's all. That's all. There's some friends that we have a good relationship with that we don't see often. But when we're in their presence, it's all back to natural. You've heard that, you've said that a million times. When I'm with her and I'm with him, it's so natural. If we haven't seen each other for 10 years and we pick up where we left off. Because it's a real bond. Fine, doesn't get nurtured. So, maybe it would be nice if the bond was nurtured more often. Fine. But it's real. I cannot see my siblings for a year, etc. Thank God for WhatsApp, but I don't see them and I bump off the plane and it's like the relationship never ended. Why? Because it's a real relationship. It's an authentic relationship. Should I be going more often? Well, pre-COVID, I don't know. Definitely, I wish I could go now. But it's real. But when it's not real, and it's like that you have to go visit Auntie Sarah because that's just what protocol demands. And everybody knows that she could be very judgmental and harsh. And you're just showing up, okay, kids, we're going to bear this together. We're going to survive this. Let's just, everybody, please, be on your best behavior. If Auntie Sarah or Uncle Jaime criticize, everybody, please just, smile. We're going to sit at the Rosh Hashanah dinner. We're going to just, everything's going to be peaceful. If they bring up Donald Trump, we're not going to talk about it, okay? And if they start, saying their racist joke, we're just going to, not smile, but we're just going to bear it. And then it's all going to be over 2 hours later. And we're just, okay, so till next year. That is not a comfortable relationship. It's a relationship that's necessary. You have to greet Aunt Helen, but it's not a relationship that you want. And the question I'm asking is, can we show up this year, Rosh Hashanah, at least being a little more in the zone? A little more like, I actually want this relationship. I actually want to get to know myself and my faith and my God a little more. I'm in. I don't know what's going to happen. It might have awkward moments. It might not have awkward moments, but I'm in. I'm in. I'm done. I'm not sitting over there the whole time. I'm sure you know this when you've taken your kids to a restaurant who they didn't want to go or because they're not with their cool friends, and sitting with mom and dad in a restaurant is so not cool when you're 18. I mean, oh gosh. So they're sitting there and they're like, Mom, can I go? The Zoom's here to pick me up. Or they're sitting at the Shabbos table and it's so uncool. I mean, they have to make kiddush and eat the kitka. And it's Mom, have I done it? We've done the Friday night meal. Okay, can I go back to my room? Okay, fine. Thank you very much. That's not a relationship. That's an adolescent. Real relationship is, yeah, warts and all, here I am. have my moods, I have my this, I have my that, I have my doubts. Yeah, I show up to Rosh Hashanah, I have my doubts. Like on the one hand, every part of me believes in God. Other parts are like, what in the world? Other parts are, I can't get my head around it. It's like the whole me shows up. Like, yeah, warts and all, but I'm showing up. And I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued with that thing. I'm not dreading it. It's not like, ooh, what outfit am I going to get? Because everyone's going to judge me. And thank God this year, no outfits because no one's judging you because you're sitting 2 meters away from everybody. And no Rosh Hashanah dinners because you're not going to eat. And who knows what this Rosh Hashanah is going to look like? Maybe it will be an ounce of authenticity. Amen. Who knows? You can only come to shul not for the choir, not for the rabbi, not for anything, just to sit and daven in your seat 2, 3 meters away from the next person, and maybe we'll engage. Now, you might sit there saying, Rabbi, you spent the last 25 minutes telling us not to feel guilty. And what? Did you do the whole 25 minutes? Make us feel guilty. No, that's not the point. The point is not that anybody walks out of here saying, I should really do more. And now let me go to sleep. This is not a guilt trip. It's just about, can we show up authentically? If you don't want to, don't. But don't feel guilty about it. Either do or don't. Drop the guilt. I always tell people, if you're not ready for it, you're not ready for it. Then just instead of saying, I'm not ready to go kosher yet. Please, God, there will be a stage in my life I'm not ready. But now I'm ready to take on this mitzvah. Fine. I don't have to sit there crying myself to sleep every night. When I'm there, I'm there. One step at a time, at whatever pace works. But guilt almost feels too good. And it replaces action. I feel guilty I'm not a great dad, I should really spend more time with my kids. And you know how guilty I feel? I even tell people how guilty I feel. Levi, just go spend time with your kids. Stop telling everyone how guilty you feel. Just do it. Show up with authenticity. Yes, maybe Jewish guilt got kids to stay Jewish and marry Jewish. Today's day and age, it's not getting anybody to marry Jew. Very few. Rarely do I hear a kid that said, I married Jewish because my parents will kill me. Well, I had a passion for it, or I happened to meet a nice boy, a nice girl, and I wanted to get married, etc. It has to come from a place of positivity. I remember someone pointed out to me a few years ago, I think it was last year or 2 years ago. He says, Rabbi, I don't want to come to shul and hear why I'm bad for only showing up 3 days a year. And suddenly I realized that's what all rabbis do. They spend their Rosh Hashanah each year, their drasha, figuring out a new way to say the same thing. Friends, and thank you so much for coming. It's wonderful that you showed up. It really is wonderful. But wouldn't it be nice to see you more often? It tells me, Rabbi, I don't want to hear it. And I have to say, that was a very pivotal moment when I was suddenly like, yeah, what am I doing? Make people feel good. Make it an authentic experience. It's not for me to tell people how often to come. It's like you show up to your mother and the mother says, "Nu, when are you coming next?" Mom, I'm here. Can we not talk about next time? I'm here. And maybe if I have a good experience, I'll show up next time. But don't tell me about the next time I should visit because I'm not really planning the next visit anytime soon. To make the experience meaningful, to make it authentic. And I was wondering, like I was in a rabbi's chat earlier today and rabbis were saying like they had a Shabbos service, the first Shabbos service, we're having it this week. And like how bland it is. No choir, no drasha, no vibe, no this, no that, no bracha. And one person, he said it quite insightfully, he says, listen, communities, shuls as community centers and socializing, they're gone for the next while. Communities as places of davening, they're open. Pretty much our shuls have been stripped away from everything besides their core function. Show up and talk to God. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Of course, I miss the old days. But is there something to be said about that? Yeah. We'll show up. We're not going to be sitting next to our friends. We're not going to have anyone to chat with. And the service will be short. But for that hour and a half, 2 hours that we're going to sit in our chair, we're just going to be our authentic selves. And if we choose not to go to shul and we're home, we'll just show up. And you know as much as I know that when your kids come home and visit, if your kids are still home or if they're at their home, they come visit, you just want them to be themselves. And when you see your kid not being themselves at home, it hurts you. It means they're not comfortable. It means their self-esteem is lacking. It means that the home is not a healthy space for them. And God feels the same way. Just come and be comfortable. Shalom. Stop being so guilty. Stop claiming your guilt. Just shalom. Want to wish you all a Shana Tova. And please, God, we should get rid of Jewish guilt and adopt Jewish growth and Jewish happiness and Jewish positivity, because ultimately all God wants from us is our sincerity, our authenticity. Whatever we show up with is better than showing up with a smile of a stewardess. L'chaim.